Happy Friday and happy Juneteenth. It's an amazing week. It's been an amazing month. It's been an amazing year. Anyway, but welcome back to another episode to our virtual Vineyard tour. This is an initiative for our Taste in Place initiative to kind of keep everyone safe at home and edutained at the same time. So today's tour is extra special because we are hosting an extra special family. In light of this year's Juneteenth, one that I think will go down as one of the most memorable of all time and certainly one of the most impactful, we wanted to host none other than an African-American owned winery. There aren't many yet. I hope this will change. But we were able, thankfully, to connect with Shay and her family, who run Frichette Winery in Red Mountain of Washington State. So this will be our first, but definitely not the last, U.S. wine tour. So before heading into our tour, just a quick reminder: if you can just share your comments or questions, you can do so in the comment box, and I'll be sure to moderate those back to Shay. Or if they're towards me, I can definitely more than happy to answer them. Also, be sure to subscribe below to our YouTube page, for more tours, for more videos about food, about wine, about all that wonderful stuff. So yeah, be sure to subscribe below. Anyway, Washington, for all of those who, like me, drink a lot of American wine already, you probably have heard of the wine region of Washington, if not really well acquainted with it. So it's becoming really quickly one of the biggest regions of the United States, and really one of the most important too, right? Today, it is the second largest wine region of the United States, just behind California. It was once mostly planted with Riesling, now today is a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, so Bordeaux varietals, and then you've also got some Rhone varietals too now, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and things like that. So looking back at history, Washington's first grapes were planted in the 1800s, right? Just like many parts of the United States. But it really wasn't until the late 60s that legislature passed a bill that permitted the import of wines from out of state inside in Washington, right? So up until then, you could drink wines from Washington, in Washington, but you couldn't purchase any out of state wines in the state. So this really was a game changer. And of course, this really kind of pushed wine growers in the area of Washington to start really upping their game and producing really finer quality styles of wine. Really just kind of getting more into what is terroir, right? Which is the identity, the DNA of wine. So today there are 14 AVAs, if you will. So you have an idea, the map of Washington is in the northwest corner of the United States, right? It's all the way in that little pocket. And what is all of the wines and all of the vineyards, they're all grown principally in the Columbia Valley, right? 99% of them are within the Columbia Valley. Within the Columbia Valley, you have sub-regions, right? And one of those subregions, you have numerous subregions, but one of them is Yakima. And within Yakima, you have this tiny, itty bitty little pocket called Red Mountain. It's another subregion. So Red Mountain is a subregion of Washington. And a lot of people would ask me, why such fuss over just this little tiny area? Why give it its own classification? Well, we're going to find out why. But it's definitely such a special place that even just the surrounding areas are so very different. They produce such different styles of wine that Red Mountain has really earned its own classification for that reason. So without further ado, let me hand it over to our wonderful host today, Shay, who is going to be sharing her beautiful winery, which I was looking at it before and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. So Shay, thank you so so much for participating today and taking the time to be with us on such a very important holiday, and to share it with us and show us your beautiful winery. If you could just take a minute, just to give us a brief introduction as to who you are, why you're in wine, how did that happen, right? And what you do at Frichette.
Well, Tatiana, it's so cool to do this, and especially on Juneteenth. So I'm giddy and happy about being a part of this. So thanks for choosing me to get to share Frichette and sachet wines with your audience. So Shay Frichette is my name. My husband and myself, we are the ma and pa here. So I'm the ma. And we are located right here in the heart of Washington wine country, in that little bitty American viticultural area you just talked about called Red Mountain. But this isn't a first career for me. I am a corporate trainer by trade. I spent almost 20 years in corporate training, and I loved it. I had a great career there. But I'm from South Carolina, and my husband is from Washington State, and we happened to meet in Southern California. And after dating and being married for a few years, my husband, Greg, just goes, you know what? Life is good. We should have a baby. And I said, okay. And he says, if we have a baby, we should move closer to our parents. Of course, I thought that meant he was talking about my parents in South Carolina, but apparently he was talking about his parents in Tri-City. So you can imagine we argued back and forth and just could not get on the same page. So after just arguing and getting sick of it, my husband, Greg, just says, you know what? Let's leave it to fate. Let's flip a coin. If it lands on heads, we'll move to Washington. If that coin lands on tails, we go to South Carolina. So we poured ourselves 2 huge glasses of wine. He flipped the quarter, and that sucker landed on heads. So of course I said, best out of 5, right? And he wasn't having that. So I checked to see if it was a 2-headed coin, and it wasn't. So fate brought us here. And, after just kind of considering what we might do in the state of Washington, we just decided to dream. I mean, that's really what we did. We just said, you know what if we did something that gave us goosebumps? And we had to figure out, well, what that was. And since both of our families are in agriculture, we thought maybe we'll work in ag. And what more fun to work in than wine grapes? So we decided we grow wine grapes and make wine. We fell in love with Red Mountain. I mean, when you're here, you'll find that there's such community here. So we would come tasting out here and decided this was home for us. We had to get a space here. The only problem was there was nothing for sale. So we strapped our boots up, actually not our boots because we were living in Southern California. We strapped our flip-flops on, and we went knocking on doors. We knocked on every door on this mountain. So we had doors closed in our face. We had dogs chase us. I mean, it was not fun. But the property that we acquired, those owners said no to us 4 times before saying yes. So we have just a little piece of the pie out here. It's only 5.5 acres. It is right here on Red Mountain. We actually live here on the property in the home that the previous owners had lived in for over 20 years. And we remodeled their storage shed to be our tasting room. And then we built a facility directly behind it. So I'll be showing you those things today. I popped just inside our tasting room because our wine grapes love the wind. They get these amazing thick skins. And when we talk about the terroir, that's going to be one of the things that I talk about is tannin structure in these wines. Well, the wind helps with that. And so it's a tad bit windy. It doesn't look extremely windy outside, but I know being out there, you'll probably hear it on the microphone here. So I just popped in for a little bit. I'm thrilled to go back outside and show that to you because it's such an amazing day here on Red Mountain. And I just can't wait to get out and show it to you. So that's just a little nugget about me. I will say that since I am from South Carolina, I am a Southern girl. So my Southern accent will probably come out as we are chit-chatting. So if you do have folks watching and they want to call me out on that, they probably can just type into the comments something that I'm just, saying. Or if you don't understand something that I said, please, Tatiana, just let me know and I can make sure that I clarify that.
I love it. I love your accent, by the way. And I think of Americans usually always butcher my name, and you're saying it so perfectly. I don't know if it's a Southern thing or what. The same thing with terroir. You say it so perfectly. So I don't know. I don't know what is it with the Southern accent that you've got more of a French and European accent, really. So, so please keep it going. So thanks again. And I'm really excited to learn more about Frichette and more about Red Mountain in general. Tell your story is so incredibly amazing. It's like if even if you wrote a book, it wouldn't be this good. I mean, it's just so great how you guys just got up and like decided to go on a whim to explore wine. And I'm sure there's been lots of ups and downs, probably more downs because wine does that sometimes, right?
It does.
But it teaches us such valuable lessons in life. So I wanted to know, what is it about Red Mountain? Why did you want to particularly go there? I mean, what is it about the region itself? And maybe you want to discuss a little more about the terroir itself that made you pick that place to make wines.
I think there are two things about Red Mountain, and I kind of, in some ways, kind of separate them. The first thing really is the terroir and what you get, because when you taste a Red Mountain wine, you actually taste Red Mountain. Those aren't my words; those are actually Tom Hedges' words, who is the founder of Hedges Family Estate. He says that all the time, but it's so true. So one element would be what wine lovers get when they taste a Red Mountain wine. You're literally tasting the dirt, you're tasting the wind, you're tasting the southwest facing slope. I mean, you're tasting what the Missoula floods brought into this area. You really are tasting this place. And so we are huge fans of Red Mountain wines. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I walk you outside and show you some of the elements that are so important for the quality of wine grapes here. The other part of it really has less to do about the taste of the wine and more to do about the feeling you get when you're here. So we fell in love with the community. And what I mean by that is when we were visiting out here and going to wineries, we just had a feeling that folks wanted us there and they wanted to share wines. And it was so common for the owners and winemakers to be there pouring for us and to share their story with us. In fact, when we finally did move here, it was very different because moving from Southern California, where in our community, people just kind of parked in their garages and you never saw them anymore. You didn't see them. So they kind of did their own thing. Even though we lived in a condo, we really didn't know a lot of our neighbors. And so we moved here to Red Mountain. And the third night we're here, we get this knock on the door and we're just going, who is that? Like, who knows we're here? What, should we answer the door? Do we, what's happening? So we kind of like peek out and there's this gentleman on our doorstep and it's John Williams, the founder of Kiona, which is the winery next door to us. And he says, hey, my entire family is at my home. We love to have you guys over. I know you just got here, but we would love to have you. My wife made this soup. We've got plenty. And so we went over. Our son was 7 months old. We went over. We spent the evening with that family. And our 7-month-old just spent the evening being bounced around between these grandmas and and other folks in their family. And it was just really cool. And that was when we just said, this is the perfect place for us because we have so many of those types of stories where this community just shows up. And so the wine, absolutely, but also the sense of community that we felt when we were exploring Red Mountain.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think a lot of people, when they drink wine, when they taste wine, or when they think about others making wine, they think a lot about the aspect of the wine. And I think it's a lot more about the people, right, that surround you.
Yeah.
And making wine is not a sole purpose. It's not like you're on your own kind of thing. You really
Correct.
do depend a lot on your neighbors and what they're doing and what you're doing. It's kind of a whole community thing in order to make good wine. So
absolutely.
So I totally agree with that. So
absolutely.
as far as your trajectory, you guys have never been making wine, right? But prior to this, you'd never make any wine, right?
No, I think we were experts because we drank wine a lot. Does that count?
Totally.
That counts for something, right? But you're right. It was a brand new venture for us, and there's a long runway to wine, and it's very expensive. And so we wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. So Greg went through the 2-year wine enology certificate program at WSU, and then I started on the WSET road, and we also brought on Charlie Hoppus, who is the head winemaker over at Fidelitas, which is just, I don't know, almost a mile from our tasting room. It's on the same road as we're on. And he took us under his wing. In fact, we didn't even know him. A grower recommended. We were going to be wine grape growers. We weren't going to make wine right away. And a wine grape grower named Dick Boucher. And as I'm mentioning these names for the folks viewing, they might know these names because these are pioneers in our industry. These are folks who've been around for a while, and they have some notable vineyards and wines. So Dick Boucher, who owns Boucher Vineyards, and he's a consultant grower, he met with us, didn't know us from anyone. And after chatting with us for 45 minutes, he goes, you know what, you guys will probably be great growers, but you might want to, focus on making wine because you have the personality for it. And we go, no, we don't know anything about making wine, but our families were in farming, so we get that. And he goes, okay. And so we spent another 45 minutes with this guy, and he says, gosh, I hate to pester you, and I really hate to just, he goes, but I really think you guys should consider making wine. He goes, let me introduce you to my buddy, Charlie Hoppus. And if you decide you just don't want to do it, I'll show you around and show you some properties that would be great sites for wine grape growing. And so anyways, he introduced us to Charlie, and Charlie talked to us for about an hour. And he just says, you know what, if you guys want to learn how to make wine, you seem like good people, I'll take you under my wing. I'll show you everything I know. And he has been an amazing mentor. To this day, he still mentors us. And I just think that was, we owe a lot of our success to him. To say that another winemaker pretty much just, really took us in and showed us how to never cut corners, how to make high quality wine, and really helped us figure out what our style of winemaking is. And so, and I think that's that really showcases what the Washington wine industry is. It is about sharing knowledge. It is about being a good neighbor, and it is about helping each other out.
Yeah, I completely agree that it's really what's made it so powerful, right? In such a brief amount of time. I mean, Washington has become the next California, right? It's a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people are drinking the wines from Washington. And like I said, a lot of people who know American wines know Washington wines, right? For sure. So tell us about your vineyards. You said you only have, did I hear you correctly, five acres?
So our property is 5.5 acres, and we have a little over 2 acres dedicated to vine. So for Frichette, we actually source most of our wine grapes from other vineyards out here on Red Mountain. The cool thing about that is we try to be a beautiful expression of Red Mountain. So what's fun about that is when you think Red Mountain, you think that, well, Cab from Red Mountain, regardless of the vineyard, would taste the same. That's the gotcha. Is because there are unique characteristics, but you can have Cab that's really site specific. And an example is we have a Cab called Quintessence Vineyard Cab, and we also have a Shaw 32 Cab. And even though these vineyards, so let's call it 1.5 miles apart on the mountain, they produce very different cabs. Now, they'll be the same clone. Quintessence Vineyard is a little lower elevation. Shaw Vineyard is higher elevation. The biggest thing we notice in that wine really is the way the tannin shows up in it. So in the Quintessence Cabernet Sauvignon, the tannin to us tends to be a little more elegant. And then in the Shaw 32 Cab, and again, it's still on Red Mountain, just not even far from the two vineyards are really close. But the Shaw 32 tends to have tannin that's a little more pronounced, a little more rugged. And that wine tends to showcase in a little more of an intense way than the Quintessence Vineyard. The cool thing is that it's the same vineyard manager and same owners of those two sites. And so we have a lot of fun, even tuning into Red Mountain. So you think Red Mountain is a postage stamp size AVA. Imagine even getting vineyard designate and getting even more specific about characteristics for those different vineyards. So I'm happy to pop out and just kind of show you a little bit of Red Mountain, and to even let's just talk about where Red Mountain is. And if it gets, well, the wind actually is kind of toned down a little bit. So hopefully the sound is okay now. But let me tell you, there's it sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds perfect.
So really there are we call it 5 pillars to Red Mountain. So 5 things that make Red Mountain so unique. And I'm gonna turn my camera around. Let's see. Let's start with low rainfall, because we get, on average, we say we get about 8 inches of rain a year. But in fact, on Red Mountain, we're looking at about 5 inches. So 8 inches is what we say is an area. And on Red Mountain, we typically get about 5 inches. Now, we do want to stress our vines, but we don't want to kill them. So they do need water. So what we do is we have to irrigate. And so I'm just going to turn the camera around here so that you could see how we irrigate. So these are our drip lines. I'm not watering right now. We typically water for about 8 hours straight. And so we watered a couple of days ago. These vines won't get watered again for another, I don't know, 3 weeks or so. We'll check the moisture. We'll kind of dig down really deep to make sure that that there's moisture maybe 3 feet down. And then if it seems like it's a little dry there, then we'll consider watering the vines. But these vines are super resilient. They don't need a ton of water, but they do need some. And so this drip irrigation system is how all the vineyards out here water. Now, the Columbia River is the largest river here, but we pull water from the Yakima River, which is a little bit smaller. The Yakima River is just right down the road from us. And so that's where the water comes in for the vineyards out here on Red Mountain. And the cool thing is, look at the little grapes here. It's so cool to see them. So we've been babying these vines. I mean, we went through and we pruned, and then we went through and
what grapes are they?
So the grapes up here are Cabernet Sauvignon. And then as we walk through this vineyard, so our vineyard is Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. And now I don't know if you guys can really see it, but I'm kind of going down on a little bit of like a little bit of a dip. And that makes a huge difference out here. And that's why these front rows will be Cabernet Sauvignon. And then as we get just a little bit lower, I don't know if anyone could tell, but because it's not super significant from the sense of just walking, but it gets a little cooler. And so I guess if you could see comments, I would love to know how that impacts wine grapes, like why that makes a difference on why I would plant a different varietal in an area where it gets a little bit cooler, even though it's not a huge difference. It's not a huge dip. But down here, I have Cabernet Franc for that.
Wow. So basically,
and then I want to show you
the fact that it gets cooler, you change the type of grape that's growing, correct?
Yes. Do you want to know why?
I would love to know why. I know why, but does anybody out there know why?
How about I'll tell you later? Remind me, Tatiana, and then I'll just I'll share later.
For extra points, anybody wants to share why they think what would happen with cooler climate in a grape? Sometimes it's common sense, but we'll see what everybody says, or if anybody says anything.
So what we're looking at right here, and let me know if you can see this. To me, it looks good, but I want to make sure that you can kind of see that hill back there or up there. So that's Red Mountain. Red Mountain is the smallest AVA in the state of Washington. It's 4,040 acres. And if you see that brown, I guess you would call it a barn. If you can see that brown barn, that is probably one of the most famous vineyards here on Red Mountain, called Ciel du Cheval. Now, when they planted right after Kiona, which is just right across the street from Ciel du Cheval, Red Mountain was not an AVA. And so they named that vineyard after, let's see, this is behind me, Horse Heaven Hills, which is another AVA. So Ciel du Cheval translates as horse heaven, I believe, in French. Don't quote that. If anybody speaks French, you can tell me if that's correct or not. Well, I'd say, like with Red Mountain, it's like a scavenger hunt anyways. So this is kind of a scavenger hunt of where's Shea and where's Red Mountain. Oh my. Okay, so we were talking about, let's see, the dirt, pretty sandy soils out here. The wine grapes love it. And so, but there's about a dozen different soil types out here, but all of them are pretty sandy. And the vines love it. Is it
similar to Columbia Valley, like that bedrock, or is it very different?
Yes. And let me tell you, if you're ever trying to plant a plant out here, you would hate it. Speaking of like bedrock and all, I'm telling you. So a few days ago, I was trying to plant a rosemary plant, and I was so frustrated because I kept hitting rock that rosemary is still sitting in the planter that it came in, because I just got so super frustrated. So yeah, lots of rock, lots of basalt. And you find just these rocks that have been moved in from other areas because of the Missoula floods. And so yeah, we've got that. We've got that.
That definitely doesn't help. Yeah. So as far as the climate, I don't know if you talked a little bit about the climate. You did say that the climate does vary as you like move around in the vineyards itself. And it's crazy how much they can vary between such small little areas, right? But what is the overall like climate? Is it mostly continental, like really cold winters, kind of warm summers?
So we get warm. The technical term is warm. I say hot. It is hot, Tatiana. Oh my goodness. But the cool thing is we get these beautiful, so we do get cold winters, we have hot summers. It's very deserty here. And we get this amazing diurnal shift. And all that means is that we get super high, super warm during the day, but then our temperatures will swing 30 to 40 degrees during the evenings. And so that's the beauty in being out here, because we the sun gives us the ripeness of the fruit, and then we get to maintain the acid with that shift in the temperatures. We get about an hour longer daylight than California, which I lived in Southern California for almost 15 years. And I was like, wow, an hour longer, what's that like? And, it's like almost, 10 p.m. and still it's not pitch dark. So
that's okay, a lot.
I get that. I get that. But the grapes love it. And, Red Mountain wines, like you know a Red Mountain wine when you try it. Our Merlots, actually, which is one of the varietals that we love working with, they kind of drink like cabs. I mean, they have great body, great structure. You do get, so you get some of the, when you think about varietal typicity, you get rhubarb, you get that, but you get that at a much more intense rate than you do with some of the other wines. Our cabs are amazing. They're different clones of cabs. Cabernet Sauvignon grown out here on the mountain. We work with 3 different clones at Frichette. Actually, I think we work with 4 different clones now here at Frichette. And so we're just trying to figure out, what clone works best. So Greg was an IT guy
It's hot out here,
before becoming a winemaker. I think he's losing his touch. You would think, so you would think it's like, if you were an IT guy, everything should work perfectly when it comes to technology. You're losing your touch.
Everything's great when it works. Then
it's horrible, right? There's no like in between space. Like it didn't work too much, but it worked well.
Yeah.
Well, hi Greg, nice to meet you virtually.
So I was telling him about Merlot, because I know that I was telling him how, like, with Red Mountain Merlots, they just drink bigger, and sometimes they drink, like, people think that they're cabs because they drink so much larger. I'm gonna put you in a frame right now. He's not as much of like the camera person, want to be on, but I'm, since you're not as good with IT stuff, then we have to.
This is my chance.
We have to make use of you somehow, right?
There we go.
So, you were really the driver in having us really focus on Merlot. So why don't you talk to that?
I think it was a part of our voyage into getting into wine, because Merlot is the ease in on all of the Bordeaux wine. So if you were to taste a Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Merlot is going to be the softest to kind of ease you into the reds. Mm-hmm. And we love it. And it's like that real big strawberry, because it gets ripe here because we got all the heat. And if Merlot doesn't get ripe, it has real big harshness. It'll make you like pucker.
Yeah.
Pretty green, right?
It gets ripe here. Yeah, the greenness.
Yeah. and we just don't have a problem with that. So I know that the way that you describe climate, like you describe the, temperature, you go warm. I'm always just like hot.
It's hot, man. It's hot.
Well, it's funny that you say that and the reason I asked is because I think Red Mountain, if I'm not mistaken, is the warmest region within
Come on,
the
Tatiana,
Columbia Valley.
we don't say
So,
warmest. We say
the hottest.
Hottest.
It's
there
the hottest. So for sure, I can relate. I know that it's pretty hot out there. I believe you. You guys are like, oh my God, get me out of here. So,
but I mean, when you do take, but the thing I keep going back to with that is just that you like even our, we made Sauvignon Blanc before, and we make Semillon now. That's the only white wine we make. But you get that you do get the like the ripe pear and ripe apple versus some of the more tart characteristics. We get those ripe characteristics in the wine. I think that's the consistency with the across the board with Red Mountain wines, and so we do we don't really care for like hanging out in the heat all the time, but we always know that we're going to get amazing fruit, beautiful fruit from the vineyards as a result of that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest.
Yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, one of the biggest difference for the whites that are grown here on Red Mountain, there's very few. Shay was saying the Semillon and the Sauvignon Blanc. If you compare, that same grape grown, even 20 miles away from here, it'll be kind of lemony, citrusy, whereas here it'll be tropical, kind of mango. The Sauvignon Blancs are delicious.
Yeah,
perfect.
And not to say that it's because we buy wines from a lot of other Washington wineries, our neighbors here on Red Mountain, and wineries outside of our area. And so we just had a rosé from Fortuity, which is in Wapato, and they do a lot of Yakima Valley sourcing of wine grapes, and we love it. And so we have heart and passion for Red Mountain. And we also love we also love that in Washington, you just get such a differentiation in the same varietals. And so we really appreciate that.
I'll bet that it helps to have that slightly hotter climate to get those riper kind of Merlot grapes and all that stuff. So, because if not, you do struggle to ripen them, right?
Right.
In talking about climate and heat and all that stuff, how's climate change affected you guys? Have you seen a big impact? Have you seen any differences from vintage to vintage? I don't know how many years have you guys been making wine now, but how many vintages you've already produced, but what has been your experience with that?
So 2011 was our first vintage here. And so we definitely do notice, we'll have some vintages that, and relatively speaking, will be considered cooler vintages. And so you can taste the difference. And we actually do like a vertical tasting where we do taste vintages. And the cool thing when Greg does that is he does talk about what the climate was like, and how he decided when to pick based on that growing season. And so, it's just like, I guess, anywhere around the world where you get your cooler vintages, like your 2011, when we first came into this, where you have a little more acid on the wine, the fruit's not, doesn't have quite the most ripe characteristics, alcohol is lower. So you definitely, you can definitely taste the difference, which I think is a lot of fun. Because that's what it really is about. And not only tasting the terroir, but tasting what Mother Nature gave you. And as farmers, how you work with that to still produce a fantastic wine, a fantastic product.
So, well, I think we can answer that question, right? What does this kind of slightly cooler or differentiating half a degree, 1 degree, how does that impact grapes, right? How does it impact the grapes that will essentially and ultimately impact the wine? What does it do? No one has answered. I don't think anyone has the guts yet.
Well, I think one of the vintages that was a lot of fun was it was the 19 vintage, the vintage where we had that crazy snow. It was so cool. So we had a late. We had vintages. It was they run together. Well, no, it was stressful. It was stressful.
Sure. But
it's fun and being able to tell the story on how, we came into it and everything was behind. And so, of course, we make these, I think we make assumptions on what we think that vintage is going to be like, what the hang time is going to be like. It's not going to be as ripe. It may not be as warm based on kind of what we see at the beginning of that vintage. And what was interesting about last year is we did, it was cooler longer, like our spring was cooler longer, bud break was a little later. But we got this crazy heat in June where things just caught up and it threw a lot of us off guard. But the result in the last vintage was that for us being newer winemakers, we were waiting on numbers. So we were looking at Brix numbers and, acid and pH, and that was going to help us determine when to pick. But in talking to some of our winemakers with more experience, they were picking on flavor. So they were out chewing the wine grapes and chewing on the seeds. And they were just saying everything that we want from this fruit is already here, even though the numbers may not show that. And so some of the winemakers made a decision to pick on flavor versus picking on numbers. But it was just an unpredictable vintage. It was out of the norm for us here in our area. And we kind of were still like, maybe we'll pick on the numbers. We're not quite sure what to do. And some Mother Nature said, I'm going to make it really cold. And if you don't get your fruit off those vines, then you won't have any fruit. And so she made the decision for us. And we went ahead and pulled all of our fruit right in time to get it in before there was a frost here on the mountain. And that was in October. So it was pretty intense. It was a vintage that was very unpredictable for us from the farming side of it. And it provided some challenges when that fruit came into production. It still came in as beautiful fruit. And I think 19 might, in our experience, go down as, one of the best vintages where the fruit showed up. It was gorgeous. It ran through fermentations flawlessly. Fruit was there, and even sitting in the barrel, it's very still very young in the barrel, but it's just showcasing really, really, really well. So we're excited about it. But talk about climate change and things being unpredictable and really throwing us for a loop. That's truly, as farmers, that's the life, right? There's so many things that are just not in your control. Like climate change.
That's the struggle. Exactly. That's the struggle. That's what a lot of people don't expect, right? When they're like making wine, they're like, oh my God, there are things out of my control that I cannot go to the store and buy something to make this work.
Right.
It's just the way it is. And I've got to either deal with it or that's all I have. That's the only choice I have. So I guess, as far as what I'm understanding is, as far as climate goes, is that the cooler the temperatures are, the higher the acidity in wines, right? And, a lot of people, consumers, right? Everyday consumers when they hear that word acidity, it's kind of, sometimes they're like, oh my God, no acid in wine. And it's like, what? That's the most important part of wine, right?
Yeah.
Without it, it's incredible part. Yes, exactly.
Having a good balance in wine, I think is so I think that's the key. And that's what that's one of the most important things for us here at Frichette is figuring out what to do with what Mother Nature gives us. So on those cooler climates where it's hard, because acid is a good thing to have in wine, right? Tannin is a good thing. Mouthfeel, like all those things are great things, but it can take away from the wine if it's too much or if it's overdone. And I think that's what it is with with us, is that you want to know it's there, but you don't want it to take away from the experience of that, of enjoying that wine.
So I want to, I don't know if it's a good idea to maybe have you guys go over to the barrel room and check it out and see if
you want to try it.
Yeah, let's try it.
Let's try it. I'll stay on the crush pad. Why don't you roll up the door?
Sure.
And then I'm going to follow over and try it. And the moment that if I'm losing it, I'm just going to sprint back.
Yes, exactly. Please.
I'll sprint back.
So talking about making wine, right? Sometimes, when we don't have acidity, we have to do stuff in the winery to kind of make it acidic, or if we don't have enough sugar in our grapes, right? What do you guys do anything, or is it just like the traditional winemaking, pressing your grapes, leaving some maceration, right, with the skin? And I mean, is there anything particular that you're doing? I know some producers are working with whole cluster. That's kind of becoming really popular too. I don't know if that's something you're doing, or if there's anything particular you want to share about how you're making your wines.
Well, I think that though, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head when you talked about some of the different things that winemakers do. And I think that for us, how we treat that wine is dependent on what Mother Nature is giving us. So do we need to do extended maceration on that to pull more flavor, to pull more color, to pull more tannin? We also look at things like our barrel program. So do we need to, for a particular vintage or a particular vineyard, is there more wood that we want to put on that wine to either balance that wine out, or to give it something that we wish that Mother Nature would, if it's not made up in acid or fruit or something like that? Is there something that the wood can give it to, to help that wine? And so those are all the things that we, that we juggle, and all the things that we, the questions we ask ourselves on, how can we still create and showcase this vintage, but using the tools that we have in order to, showcase it in a way that we can, that we'll be proud of. So, to be honest, we really don't do much extended maceration. We haven't since we started. And, one of the reason why is I was talking about like the thick skins. Tannin comes from that, flavor comes from that too. And so our wines are assertive tannin, but not huge tannin. And so we try and be very careful about how long we let the juice have contact with the skins. And so we actually take our wines through fermentation pretty quickly. I mean, usually no more than 10 days we'll have that contact. 7, 8 days is probably the sweet spot for us. But we'll have it in our production facility, and we just try and, keep the ferment going, keep the yeast working. If it's warmer outside on our crush pad during the day than it is in our production facility, we'll pull those bins outside just to keep that yeast, working and keep that fermentation going. But we're measuring it twice a day. So we'll measure the sugar level and temperature at 5:30 a.m. When we're doing punch downs, just to make sure that the temperature is moving. And then we'll do punch downs at night and measure then. And if it's not, then we have to make decisions on, well, this really isn't moving. What do we need to do? Do we need to heat that room up a little bit more? Do we need to push these outside tomorrow? But extended maceration isn't something that we particularly have done. So you'll see, you'll look at the sun on my face. It's hot. It's so
You're like, I can't.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna turn the camera around, yes, because perfect. I want you to see the barrel room here.
Yeah. So are you using all these barrels? Are they all in function right now? Are they all filled and topped up with wine?
So good question. So no, we're not. So some of the barrels, let's see, the 18s are. So these barrels over here, these are empty. These are the barrels that the 2018 wines were in. And so we pull those out, bottle those 18 wines, and we sanitize and clean these barrels, and they're just kind of waiting. So some of these barrels were brand new when the wine was put in, and some of them were used in, we call them neutral, but pretty much that means used. And so that's what you find over here. And then on this side, these are the 2019 wines, so the 2019 vintage. So this is what we worked on just a few months ago, got those in barrel. And they'll sit for, usually we age our wines for 18 to 24 months. Now, I love standing here, Tatiana, I have to tell you, because this room is 55 degrees consistently. It feels so good. Even just standing right outside the door. It's like I'm standing in front of an air conditioner. You could probably hear the fans in the back, but it feels so good in here. Although during the winter time, most of the other times of the year, I hate coming in here because I'm always so cold. But yeah, the other thing I'll tell you about these barrels. So we use a lot of French oak. We do use some American oak. French oak, the grains are tighter, and American oak, the grains are looser. And so you can imagine with the looser grain being the American oak, you're going to get more assertive flavors. And with French oak, you get more subtle wood flavors in the wine. Wood flavors like your caramel and butterscotch and cedar and, nutty characteristics.
How many bottles of wine are you producing in total production?
So we produce 2,000 cases of wine. Yeah, 2,000 cases, which is still it's a very small, very, very, very small. So some of our neighbors out here produce, 6,000 cases, 10,000 cases. Some of our neighbors produce 80,000 cases of wine. And so 2,000 is very small. So we are a mom and pop boutique winery. And, we 2,000 was our goal. I mean, we started imagining this winery, 2,000 cases was where we wanted to go. But I launched my brand Sachet Wines. And that has really changed the game for us. And we're just like, well, we really didn't plan that from the very beginning. So how do we do that? Do we add that into the 2,000 cases, or is that in addition to? So that's something that we're just kind of really trying to work out, because we built our production facility for 2,000 cases. So kind of puts us in a little bit of a pickle.
So Sachet is a different line entirely from Frichette. Is it still grown in your property or?
Yes. So Sachet is just one of the labels that we produce here. And where that came from, Tatiana, I don't know if you know this story, but 3 years ago, I went to an event called Celebration of Black Women in Wine, and it was in Miami. And I was invited to this as a guest, and I heard the name of it and where it was. And I was like, absolutely. So I got a ticket right away. And when I was there, I was so inspired. I'd never seen Black female winemakers. And I mean, even as a grown woman, I was just like, oh my God, I've just never seen anyone like me, as a head winemaker and owning a wine business. So when I got back on the plane to come to Washington, Sachet was already born. I had planned everything on that flight. So when the wheels landed in Tri-Cities, I knew I was going to make this wine that really was an expression of me. And, with Frichette, we focus on Bordeaux varietals, and Sachet is sassy. She can do what she wants. So I make a Syrah and I make a rosé, which really is not something that we do here at Frichette. And it was so much fun having my husband, Greg, support me on this, because I came back and I said, I'm launching this brand. This is who she is. This is what it's about. He goes, tell me what you need. Put me to work. How do we get this going? And so it's fun in our production facility, because when it comes to Frichette, I do a lot of the work in the production, alongside him, but he gets to call the shots on that. And then when it comes to Sachet, I'm the boss. I get to tell him what to do.
So you have to share with us, maybe you can share with me later the link, and I'll just post it below, or where we can find this Black Women in Wine. Oh my gosh, please, yeah. We need to praise this. I've never even seen this. And I'm always saying, like, where can I find just more diversity in the wine region, right? Which is what we need. And we do.
We definitely are lacking. And, even like I said, for me it was first. It was the first I'd ever heard of Black Women in Wine. And I'm so thankful. Urban Connoisseurs is the organization that put it on. And it's her mission to bring forward Black. Actually, she has international Black winemakers and people of color. And so I'm so grateful, because I literally just would have been in the dark. I just, wouldn't have known as soon as I did. And so it was such a blessing. And that's where Sachet, was born. And I love the brand. And the cool thing is, if you haven't seen the label, I'm going to pop in, I'll show you what the prints look like, because I hired a young artist from the Tri-Cities, a guy named Chance Watt. This guy's like in his 20s. He's never taken an art class. It just wasn't his thing. And he just fell in love with art, and, he's a painter, he's an artist, and he painted the label for me. And so it was one of those things that was really cool to give him the opportunity to have his first a piece on a label, and for me to have such a beautiful piece of art. So you ask the next question. I'm gonna walk you in so I can show you. I just have to show you.
Please do. Please do. I mean, just the fact you said that she's sassy, I just want to taste that wine.
Yeah. So parting way, we are so we
oh my
are
goodness.
closed right now, but we are open for curbside pickup, and so our tasting room is just a little bit out of sorts right now, but that's where we are. So this is the label for the rosé. How dope is that? Right? And this is the label for the reds. Isn't that cool?
I love it.
Okay, and I have to read the back of the bottle.
Is it something you wrote?
Oh yeah. So Byron on our team, she loves this label. She goes, you know what? I already have some on the bar for you. Let's see if I can get that.
Oh man, you got to get these wines to New York somehow, please.
So if you don't mind, I'd love to read the back of the label to you.
Not at all. Please go for it.
Okay. And so Tatiana, I want you to know that this, the message on the back of the label, it speaks to you. Okay. So this message is for you. And it's also going to be for all the other ladies that are watching this now, or will watch this later. So you ready, Tatiana?
Oh, I was born ready.
Here we go. You are strong. You are courageous. You are fierce. You have the ability to create positive change in this world. So lift your chin, push your shoulders back, and sashay, girl, sashay. So
love it. Oh my God, that's amazing.
So that's what the back of that label reads. And I want any female who picks that up to really feel that, because I feel as women that we're stronger than we even think. And sometimes it takes someone saying that to us, or it takes us reading that to really feel that, and to inspire us to do something big and make some positive change.
Yeah, I feel like the more women that we see on, on the front lines of this and of all major industries, right? We're going to just feel more empowered and say, well, you know what? This is actually something I can do. I can do this, right? So Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for reading that. That is, I hope, and anyone who just views it, I'm going to like bookmark that area. Please, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, it's fine. Just watch this area.
Thank you for receiving that. Yes. Thank you for receiving that. I'm glad it landed.
Absolutely. So lastly, we can wrap this up. And I think you've answered a lot of questions, but I think as a woman, right, as an African American woman, right, there has been, I'm sure, tons of struggles in general in your life, but mostly with wine, right? What is one of the things that you can say wine as vines, right? As grapes, as Mother Nature, as climate, as all these things that we now know seeing them is out of our control. What have they taught you? Like, have they taught you any like lifelong lessons? Like, you know what, really, this has changed my life forever in the sense that I really appreciate things differently. I mean, how has it impacted you as an individual, as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as just everything? How does that made you who you are today, as the Shay you are today?
Well, I think that, first off, doing this, when I shared with you, going to that Black Women in Wine event, that gave me it gave me the push and the confidence to do this. And I think doing it is doing it in a way has proven to me that, if I can do this, there are other things that I can do. If someone else impacted me that way, that had me create this brand, that had me create this message that I myself love to hear, and I say that to myself sometimes, that maybe someone else will see me, maybe some, young Black girl, or maybe a young girl, even that's a not Black girl who doesn't believe in herself, can see me and say, oh my gosh, well, if she's a minority and she did something that's cool, maybe I can do something that's cool too. And so, for me to get this opportunity to be in this industry and make wine, I don't take it lightly at all. And I hope that, I get to be a face and inspiration for other folks. It's just like, that was something that I kind of thought about doing, and she's doing it. So, I love to do that too. I'm very proud to be in this industry and to do the work. I'm proud to be in the Washington wine industry. The industry has been really good to me, and but I know there's work to be done, and I'm up for the challenge. And there are conversations that I'm having on, what can I do? How can I be more of an influence? How can we create more diversity and inclusion, in my local industry here in the Tri-Cities within Red Mountain, and then also in the Washington wine industry. So I still feel like there's more work for me to be doing, and wine does give me a great avenue to help influence that.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I was gonna have an amazing conversation with you, but this was just mind blowing. I'm like already halfway down my bottle, and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna like replay this. It's just so great. It's so inspirational, and it's perfect for the times that we're living in that are really, really, they're crazy times, right? There's so many negative things, and then those negative things are really, really opening up, like you said, avenues for really great things to happen. And I hope people in general start realizing their responsibilities and how we can really change the scope of everything, right? So,
Right.
So with that, what are you going to be drinking tonight? Tonight is special night, and what are you going to be celebrating with? Please tell us.
Well, so I love starting, well, with the weather here, it's going to cool off this evening, but I love starting off with the rosé. So I think I'm going to start with just a little bit of either my sachet rosé, or I still have some of that fortuity rosé that I may enjoy tonight. And then, being that it's Juneteenth, I do believe you've probably seen this quote. It's like, when you know better, you do better. And so I do want to take this evening on Juneteenth just to reflect. And I like doing that more so with red wine than I do white wine. And the sachet Syrah is, it's jammy, it's meaty, it's savory, it's youthful, but it's just kind of those dark berry characteristics that just sit on your palate and can coat your palate in a way that helps you to reflect and helps you to think back. And because of that message, it is an inspirational wine. And so, that's what I want to have, because I want to reflect on, how I can, like, how I can continue to make positive change, and what am I not doing today that I can do tomorrow to be better and do better in my own community. So I'll start with the rosé, and then I'm going to end the night with that sachet Syrah. That's what I'm going to have.
Sounds like a divine night. That sounds so delicious. Where can we find your rosés and your Syrahs and all your wines? Are they only cellar door? Are they only available at your winery or at the moment, or will you be expanding that? Or
so right now they are exclusively available at most of our wines are only available through our tasting room, and we ship to a handful of states. On the East Coast, Florida and North Carolina are the two states that we ship to on the East Coast. But then we have a few other states in the middle of the US that are sprinkled in there. So directly from us at frichettewinery.com. And that's where you'll find not only those wines, but we make a Carmenere, we make a Zinfandel. I didn't say anything about those, but those are like very tough.
You kept it secret.
Mountain, but
where do you grow all this stuff on 2 acres? What's going on?
I know. So we get them from a vineyard. Get this. So the Carmenere comes from Heart of the Hill. I love that name, Heart of the Hill.
Yeah.
And the Zinfandel comes from Red Heaven Vineyard. I love that name too. So most of these vineyards I can walk to. And I have a quad that I'll hop on and drive to them if I need to. So everything is so close. It's really, really, really close. But popping onto our website, grabbing our wines there, our sachet rosé sold out in 2 months last year. So if there's anyone watching and you're in a state that we can ship to, that's a good one to nab. It's just so perfect for the summer. And hopefully we'll get into markets. As I was sharing earlier, 2,000 cases is where we are, but I love to expand the sachet wines just because I love making those wines so much. And so those will be some of the wines that'll be more readily available in restaurants and in stores, hopefully by next year.
God. Well, I'm very excited. I'm so excited to taste them. And I'm so excited to meet you in person once all of this hopefully is over and we can travel safely again. Make no mistake, I will be there and I will go and visit you because I need to give you a physical hug.
Yes. And Tatiana, I have to tell you, one of my favorite things ever is building itineraries. I don't think that you need to spend time so you're the pro at it. I'm not taking your job. You're the pro at it. But when you come to my area,
take my job.
Be my guest. Let me build the itinerary for you. Let me know in advance so I can personally go around with you and show you off and show all the, show you the ins and outs of Red Mountain. Take you through some of the vineyards.
I would
take you to some of my favorite restaurants.
I would love to be able to schedule an itinerary with you, with a bunch of people, and maybe even just women. I don't know. Why not?
Let's make it happen.
Right? Let's make it happen. It's happening right here live on YouTube. So
yes. So you know how followers are. They hold you accountable.
Oh yeah.
So since you put that out there.
Well, thank you so much again, Shay. It was such an honor and a pleasure to meet you, to talk to you on such a special day. And, I'm really grateful for this time. And I really can't wait to meet you again in person and to have one of these again with you. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing your amazingness. Keep producing your sachet wines and even your Frichette wines. And once you have them here in New York, please let us know so we can get on that and start shopping for them. But other than that, thank you again. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care and happy Juneteenth.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.